This year, our conference is themed Gas, the Road to Economic Recovery. The theme underscores the critical role gas will play in revitalizing Nigeria's economy, creating jobs and delivering energy solutions that will transform industries, communities, and lives.
Very quickly, we will be switching to the second panel session, and yes, without further ado, the second panel session is on gas policy, a tool for wealth creation and employment. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome our panelists as they come on stage. First up, Professor of Geology and Geophysics, Chukwuemeka Odumegwu of Chukwu University, Professor Kingsley Nwozo. Round of applause for him as he takes the stage. Next, we have Head Oil and Gas Department, Lagos State Government, Engineer Moses Udukoya. Round of applause for him as he takes the stage. Up next, we have Partner, Bloomfield LP, Dr. Ayodele Oni. Round of applause for him as he takes the stage. Thank you very much. We're making that switch very, very quickly so we can make progress and move very, very, very quickly. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. Head Oil and Gas Department, Lagos State Government, Engineer Moses Udukoya. Right in the middle will just be fine, sir. Most welcome, sir. It is an honor to have you with us today. Professor of Geology and Geophysics, Chukwuemeka Odumegwu of Chukwu University, Professor Kingsley Nwozo is also on this panel. Then we have Dr. Ayodele Oni of Bloomfield LP. And our moderator for this session is from the Energy Institute, Hope Ofuka. A round of applause for Hope Ofuka. Please, all discussions in the holding room need to end right now. We need everyone in the conference area right about now, please. Thank you very much. And once we have this second panel session done, we'll move straight to the third session, which is opportunities and challenges for women-led businesses. And the fourth panel session is gas technologies applications in loss prevention, efficiency, and customer experiences. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, our second panelist, Partner at Bloomfield LP, Dr. Ayodele Oni. You're most welcome, sir. It is an honor to have you with us today. Thank you very much, sir. You're most welcome. Just right beside Engineer Udukoya will be fine. Thank you, sir. Dr. Ayodele Oni, Partner at Bloomfield LP. Professor of Geology and Geophysics, Chukwuemeka Odumegwu of Chukwu University, Professor Kingsley Nwozo. Round of applause for him. Thank you very much. And the moderator for this session is none other than Hope Ofuka from the Energy Institute. Thank you very much. That is Professor Kingsley Nwozo, Professor of Geology and Geophysics, Chukwuemeka Odumegwu of Chukwu University. Thank you, sir. You're most welcome. Our moderator is seated. The moderator is from the Energy Institute, Hope Ofuka. Thank you. And yes, we have the Executive Director, Technogas, Mr. Collins Nyam. Yes, that is the Executive Director. Please switch. I'd like the moderator to be here. Or perhaps you can go and sleep beside Engineer Udukoya. So that is our last moderator, the Executive Director, Technogas, Mr. Collins Nyam. So ladies and gentlemen, we'll move straight to this discussion. And yes, our panel is set up and complete. Mr. Moderator, over to you. Let the conversation begin. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this panel discussion on gas policy, a tool for wealth creation and employment. My name is Hope Ofuka, and I'm honored to serve as your moderator for this important conversation. As you definitely know that Nigeria holds the world's largest one of the world's largest reserves when it comes to natural gas. So resources, so we have the potential to provide significant economic value. However, realizing this potential requires intentional policy So we need policy that are smart, policies that are equitable. We need policies that can help us to not just focus on the extractions of gas, but also prioritize local industries, job creations, and long-time wealth generation. Joining us on this panel, we have industrial leaders and they are bringing their valuable insights into how um, gas can, how policies in the gas field. So we'll be definitely going to be discussing around that. So let's just dive into the discussion. Looking at the current gas policy landscape, I'll be throwing my first question to um, Mr. Collins Oyema. So, looking at the current gas policy landscape, what is the current state of gas policy in Nigeria, and how can we compare this policy with global practices? I also know that you are in the industry, so I'd like you to discuss what are the existing policies, then comparing it with your experience with global practices. Um, what do you think? What do you think we have when it comes to gas policy?
Good afternoon. We have listened carefully to the speakers early part of in the morning, and now here we are. Um, First, I have to applaud all the speakers. They delved into the policies by the government. For me and for us, we take no oil. We essentially are in the business of trading. We are into mainly the downstream, all the way from the lubes, the PMX, the gas. We have a gas terminal, and we're now trying to get into CNG. Now, we've listened about the reserve Nigeria potentially have, which is over 200 trillion cubic feet. They've talked about the fact that Nigeria is the largest in Africa, and globally, we're the ninth. But the question becomes, are we a global player? Are we even close? What effort are we making to drive the current policy? We've talked a little bit about the challenges in terms of lack of infrastructure, in terms of inadequate regulatory framework, in terms of limited investment. And these the policy essentially is affecting the ability of those, the private sector. And let me say this, yes, gas is a priority resource. And they've defined it in so many ways. For us to make a meaningful impact, for us to drive the market, then we have to be in a position to drive gas. That is the bottom line. But the question becomes, what is the government doing to assist us in this effort? The role of the government essentially is to do what? Is to monitor progress and assist or take actions where gaps exist. That is essentially their role. It is the private sector that drives the market. So it comes to the policy. How do we move away from the challenges to being able to create employment? Now, let's take, for instance, what is going on in Nigeria today. We've talked a little bit about the collapse of the degree system. We talked about job creation, wealth creation. How do you create jobs and wealth when in Nigeria we only work from 9 to 5? That's just one shift. There's no country comparable to countries in the Western world, in North America, in Europe. They work 24-hour shifts. The only way we can absorb our students or those of our friends graduating is to be able to have industries that operate on 24-hour shifts. There's no two ways about it. No country can absorb all able individuals willing to work within that space of 8 hours. It's impossible. And that's where this gas comes in. We've talked a little bit about the diversification of our energy sources. It is relevant we do that. It is a priority. But the policy from the federal government, although they are doing the best they can, but we do believe that they can do more. They can do more in terms of, and again, we've talked a little bit about it, in terms of tax incentives, in terms of subsidies, in terms of import duty waivers. Yes, they are trying, but more needs to be done. With respect to CNG, we're aware of how much that was appropriated for the private sector to assess. Initially, several years ago, it was LPG. Today, LPG seems to be stagnant. We're no longer creating demand and we're no longer creating usage. We've talked a little bit about pushing this to the rural areas. Even the urban people are right now struggling to do what? To buy gas. How can you push to the rural areas when the people in the urban areas are struggling? It's impossible. So I do not believe the current policy we have right now is sufficient. We can do more to incentivize the investors and entrepreneurs. That way, there will be more job creation in terms of the industries, in terms of industries, agriculture, petrochemicals, and others. And that's the only way you can drive wealth. That's the only way you can drive job creation. If we continue at this rate, yes, again, we've talked a little bit about by the year 2030, we should be able to come close to maybe about 5 million metric ton annually. Today, we're hovering around 1.5. Well, that's something. But we only have 6 years to achieve that. So this policy has to change. Yes, the government currently is doing more on CNG, but I do believe they can do more as well on LPG. So I would always, I think this is going to be part of the communique we'll relate to that we'll capture at the end of the day. So we are making progress, but I think more needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your insights. We are working on the policies and the governments need to do more. But we need to find out. Okay, so we need to find out. So this question is to you, Dr. Ayodele Oni. So the question is, what are the current policies in terms of creating Nigerian, in terms of wealth creation in Nigeria? And what are the present policy and how impactful are they in terms of the economy? And what is one thing you would like to see? What policy or what idea would you like to see that the government should do better in that aspect to improve sustainable economic growth?
Okay, thank you very much. I always argue that we have brilliant people. We have brilliant policies. At times, they may be inadequate. Where we'll struggle, it's not even in the policies, it's in implementation. And I'll give you a practical example. I'm a transactional lawyer. There's something called the import duty exemption certificate for certain equipment you import into Nigeria, certain solar items, gas equipment, but it's very, very difficult to get those things in practice. There's what you have in the books. There's brilliant, beautifully written policies and policy statements. Then there is the implementation, which is where we fail usually as a country. That's a starting point. And I don't know if everyone does know that Trump is the new president or the president-elect. And I'm quite pro-Trump when it comes to energy policy. I think that we should let oil, gas, and renewables coexist and not quickly, even if the Western world, and I think it's quite self-serving, what the Western world is doing around renewables, because immediately there was the war, they went back to nuclear fission, some went back to coal and firewood. So first, we must have a Nigeria first policy around energy and sustainability. And one thing government is doing is, rather than, I call it a fuel subsidy substitution policy, instead of continuing to give fuel subsidy for liquid fuel, we are now doing more gas, encouraging gas which is cheaper rather than continuing to give policy subsidy. Now, when you do this, you'd have to ensure, and that's one thing I want government to do. You have to ensure that there is coherence across your value chain, such that where you support upstream, there is corresponding support midstream and downstream. Otherwise, people explore for gas, find gas, but there is now no use or sufficient support for processing and ultimate use downstream. So for LPG, for CNG. So alignment is one thing that's been a challenge. Secondly, we need to solve this gas to power challenge. The grid needs to stop collapsing because you cannot have a semblance of true economic growth if you do not have sufficient public power supply, not all of these IPPs. I live in an estate where I spend almost $1 million every month, and it's crazy on electricity. It's crazy because it is 400, over 400. I think they increased it to about 420 per kilowatt hour. It just doesn't make sense. Then there is now a fixed charge of almost 100 naira almost 100,000 naira every month. Now, if you do that, you are killing trade and commerce. Because recall, we speak about the AFTA, where you have Africa being a single market. You cannot compete in those circumstances where you do not have grid supply. And I would also borrow from what he said. If you do not have a 24-hour economy, I remember when I was doing my postgraduate master's PhD, in those cases, I worked overnight so that I could study during the day. I worked at Walmart, and I washed plates at, I can't remember, elsewhere, right? But I did it overnight as a student, not when I was supposed to study. But over here, you don't see that. Another thing I think government needs to encourage, and I have a lot to say, but I'll say one more thing so that I don't take over the panel. Government needs to support the academia working with industry, like what you see in the Silicon Valley. That university, Stanford, is the base for all of these tech innovations you see. But you don't see policies that support the academia doing research and development and working with banks, working with tech, working with gas to provide innovation. If we do not innovate, we will die, we will not compete. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for that question. You can give it to the next panelist. Thank you so much, sir. And one of the things you mentioned in this discussion, so I would like to ask you, just taking it up from there, you talk about import duties and how some of the things are very difficult in terms of implementation, saying that yes, we have these policies, but they are difficult. So what do you think in terms of incentive that the government has done that they have been implementing, and you can see that is actually working in terms of wealth creation? And what other things can you, when it comes to incentive, would you like the government to implement? And the ones that have been implemented, what do you think are the key challenges, and why are they not being implemented properly in as much they're in the books?
Thank you very much. The key policy government put in place concerning gas, we recall that PIA was passed in 2021, and one of the things that government put in place to ensure the production and exploration of gas availability. That's one. There's also gas master plan that was done by government to ensure supply and demand so that they can match up the levels. So government has done some of the key policies that will enhance availability of gas, and whereby the economy can be made straight. So what other things that government need to do that you're talking about is that government has created so many incentives. Number one, the import duty. Right now, they just stated that there's an assumption for all components that pertain to gas. So like I think what has happened is we Nigerians sometimes we don't take advantage or we don't have the full knowledge, deep knowledge about what government they have done and how to assess those things. So I think we need to go back. Someone said most times we don't want to take deep knowledge about how to take advantage of what government has done. Most times you think, oh, is the normal Nigerian approach. No, we need to go to those federal ministers of finances there. Go there and see how you can assess those policies and how you can assess and get those exemptions. You can apply. When you don't apply, you are there discussing on the table or coming down to, you will not get anything done. All we need to do is to go to Minister of Finance and see how you can access exemption. Apply. They will get you. It may take time. But we don't want to wait as Nigerians. We want it quick, immediate answers. But it's not so in most cases. So we need to look at how we can deeply say, okay, what does the law says? If some people have not even seen the gazettes of those exceptions and know the coverage of those things to the level of the coverage. They have not seen it. So they need to look at it and bring it back and look at and evaluate and say, okay, this I can assess easily. And we know that there are other bottlenecks in when they put policies in place, but you need to overcome those challenges. The challenges are there so that one person mentally will not give you an exemption, and at the end of the day, other people are denied. So you need to look at it holistically, look at the policy, and go to the Federal Ministry of Finance, where you can get those exemptions and you can assess those policies, and then see your exemption where you can be exempted and you can apply.
All right. Thank you so much for your interesting insights. So we move now to Professor Kingsley. Yes. So there are a lot of regulatory challenges we have, both the local industry, and sometimes face the challenge. Those who have companies face some of the challenges, and some of the challenges that the government have implemented. Sometimes you find it, even when you try to get exemption, also you find it, and delay is time, and they say time is money. So I'll just mention some of these. So one of the policy, for instance, and I want Professor Kingsley to talk about how can we overcome this regulatory challenge. Okay, let's say there's a challenge here. How do we overcome? And one of the instances is the implementation timeline of some of this policy. One of them is the gas flare commercialization program that was announced in 2016, and from 2016 up to the point of last year, they had a meeting last year, and the bidders for that particular project was announced. So why do that particular policy have to take 7 years for implementation? So something like this, how do we overcome it? Another one is price control for domestic market. So challenges when it comes to regulatory challenges, how do we overcome this? When it comes to compliance of costs, how do we overcome this? And also when it comes to the need for collaboration between regulators to avoid conflict as well, how do we overcome all these challenges? Thank you.
Thank you, moderator. I consider myself one of the luckiest panelists here, where you have Tech Lawyer by your side and a lawyer next to you and other heavyweight over there. So this is a very balanced panel. I'm coming from a point of academia with a bit of industry touch. What is keeping us in this room today happens to be an accidental discovery in the course of looking for oil. I hope we all know. What we are discussing today used to be waste of yesteryears. If you move from the days of Oloibiri to the first time we began to discuss gas, 1979, that's when we did the first AG reinjection. 1979, from Oloibiri to 1979. So it's for you to understand what timelines, okay, are being to us. From 1979, we moved again to the next time we discussed about framework for associated gas. Now, if you look at all these things, across the entire industry, timeline has been a problem. If you look at the upstream, we are even now domesticating gas, popularizing gas, embracing gas because of the things we've come to know about gas. Because it is an accidental discovery, what are we even doing to formalize gas exploration, gas-specific exploration? The geologists over there, what are they doing? What industry doing upstream? If oil is a problem or less favored, have we even advanced to exploring for gas? Coming to issue of timelines. Policy, when policy comes from top down, it comes with a problem. Bottoms up, it becomes a bit democratic. When you democratize your policy making process, when you get the industry to be involved, the market to be involved, the consumers to be involved, I think a scale of impact begins to become realistic. Again, if you are the policy owner without a model implementer or executor of your policy, what again are you showcasing? You have to lead by example. So, in the gas industry and the entire value chain, we see a whole lot of concerns. Concerns of transparency, concerns of weak regulations, concerns of not leading by example, you saying one thing, you are doing the other thing, and concerns that everybody needs profits. Which one profits me more? I go for the one that will profit me the more and look for how the other ones can be circumvented. It shouldn't be a cultural or national thing. Again, what are the end users telling us? So, overcoming weaknesses or overcoming long timelines in achieving policy implementation is actually part of the concerns that every policy making should begin to address. The pathway to the policy making is part of the problem. If you get it right with the implementers and executioners, I'm sure the timeline wouldn't be much of a concern. Thank you.
Okay, so yeah. So one of the things you mentioned is involvement. Say that we need to be involved in this policy making. I also know that some of this policy stakeholders, I don't think everyone, maybe some we get to get involved, why some we don't get to get involved. So I would like to ask, what do you think is the role of public-private partnership in terms of implementation of this gas policy as a player in the industry?
Okay. Well, to drive the market, it is true that one sector cannot do it alone. And that's where the private PPI is required. It is true also that government is doing the best they can, making funds available where appropriate, and allowing investors. Let me just give you an example with respect to CNG and what they have done recently. Given the amount of money they appropriated to drive CNG, that is an incentive. And that incentive is why we are seeing all this talk and movement regarding CNG, the presidential initiative on CNG. What you are seeing right now is the creation of, and I know someone from PNG talked a little bit about it, the creation of mother stations, daughter stations, conversion kits. These are areas anyone can actually play in. We've also talked a little bit about the expansion of existing pipelines, and this goes to CNG and maybe LNG. There are people, I'm sure the last session that we're here, a couple of them were, I think there's some kind of relationship they have with NLNG as we speak, where it's like 50-50 in terms of trying to drive that movement. And that is just about the way to go because one single individual may not be able to do it. There's a lack today as we speak. You cannot do anything with CNG. It's not like LPG where you can store and move. You still need a whole lot with respect to the expansion of existing pipelines, construction of new pipelines to drive that strategy. So I am of the opinion, and I agree completely, that there ought to be some partnership with an effort to drive this road to economic recovery. In absence of that, I don't see much really happening. Government on this part, they are doing the best they can, but again, I will just keep saying this, they have to do more, and there is room for improvement. In terms of, again, we've touched on the subsidies, on the import duties, but there's a whole lot they can do, even in terms of the regulatory framework, the policies they have out there. So we are making progress, but quite frankly, a lot needs to be done.
So this is my last panel question. So we're taking two questions from the audience. I would like to ask one last question. I would like to ask Mr. Oni. Analyzing domestic gas delivery obligation, how should Nigeria balance serving domestic gas demand and pursuing external opportunity?
Okay, thank you very much. I think you need to always forge a delicate balance between taking care of your people and forex and foreign generating foreign exchange. There's a gas delivery, domestic gas delivery obligation under the PIA. So and it also then goes to enforcement. What government then does need to do is to ensure enforcement. That's the upstream commission working with the midstream and downstream petroleum regulatory authority. That delicate balance needs to be forged, and then we have sufficient volumes of gas. We just need to encourage more production, approve more divestment. If people say they want to sell their assets, don't wait for 2 years like the Exxon deal. Don't create chaos like the Renaissance deal, and we see all sorts in the dailies. Let people's deals go through, like Exxon. I'm sure Seplat probably bought that asset because of gas, because Seplat is gas driven. So encourage more exploration before we even go green completely. Let us exploit very aggressively the gas we've got. We have sufficient quantities to be able to export, and we have sufficient quantities to use locally. We just need to get the policies right, implement right, and I am of the view that infrastructure backbone is the responsibility of government, not the private sector. Or else your deals will not be bankable. People will not be able to afford your product. That's why I can be spending so much on electricity, because it's not government, it's not the grid, it's not the national grid, it's a private sector person builds a power plant, a 2 megawatt power plant, and it's going to exploit everyone around. So infrastructure, I'm not saying infrastructure, but the backbone, for example, the AKK and the one going to Morocco and the Algeria, those gas pipelines should be built by the government. Then it even gives us an opportunity to be an alternative to a country like Russia. And that will generate more income. So there are many low-hanging fruits. I know we've wasted some of our oil wealth that we should have used for some of this infrastructure, but the opportunities still exist because there are there's demand internationally. Whether it's the WACP or the West African Power Pool, there are opportunities. We just need to plug the infrastructure gap. So that's my view. I think we can forge that delicate balance, but a lot needs to be done by the government, from policy, law, implementation, and providing the infrastructure backbone. Thank you.
Okay, so I would like you to add what he has said from that question, I'd like you to just make a comment.
Yes, government needs to do a lot in providing infrastructure. However, the government fund is limited, and that's why they are saying that yes, that's why they are saying anybody, yes, government will sponsor some of this infrastructure, but there's a pass through. I agree. You can pass your gas through those pipelines as they're being constructed. I agree. If you have your own gas molecule that want to pass through those things, yes, but if you have like that, what they did a lot of in the free trade zone, and that's why you have from X2 down to Dangote route, every other people is plugging in on that axis. And that's exactly what government is saying. There are some people that want to invest inside the pipeline. They can come up. NIPCO is doing a lot about the pipeline, laying pipeline in some parts. So government alone cannot do it. And that's where you are saying private investors, please join hand with government and let us provide this infrastructure. So that's its way to go. In doing that, it will be done on time. I with me. You can make nobody will the if government can you might say it will be drag, but with private sector coming in, it will be easier for us to do it on time and you can use it within space of time. And you can got the individuals, however, that the nature can make a lot of gains words from it. And that's exactly the way to go. We need to do more of PPP. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your response. Do we have any questions among the audience? Okay. Okay, we have another comment to that.
Thank you. As I just add some thoughts to what the last two speakers said, balancing supply to domestic and external is key to success, because everything we are discussing here is about gas availability and how to optimize the gains of the industry. I was looking at something just last week. The cost of taking gas around Nigeria through valid national pipeline network and the cost of doing the same using the virtual pipeline system, where we see trucks running from almost Bayelsa to Lagos, to Kano, to Kaduna. Who does that? You see, just like he said, infrastructure, so that costs will begin to come down. By the time you look at all those peripatetic, stuff, a solid-minded investor will be looking for gaps on how to take his gas to where he will maximize his dollars. If you saw the price regime as segmented, gas to power, this amount 2.42, commercial, this one 2.92, and the other one, it's just a gap we are creating. Because if the force of implementation is not there, you just go to the lower end, build a vehicle that will give you gas at that lower cost level and take to where you maximize it. It's just like what we do with subsidy. Are you getting me? So striking the balance needs to be there. The infrastructure, all right, as we commercialize, and other considerations and all those things. So we need to interrogate that same process of price segmentation, what we are doing with our infrastructure as we commercialize, then domestic gas supply obligations and the other concerns. Thank you.
Thank you for that interesting insight. So we'll just take, because of our time, so we'll just take two questions from the audience. I think we have one.
Right. So, moderator, where am I going?
Okay, you can lift up your hand.
Okay. There's someone with a hand up.
Do we have any other person?
Any other person?
So we have two hands.
Okay, we have two. One and two. Okay, that's it. Your name, where you work, and straight to the point.
All right. So
Good afternoon, everyone. Permit me to stand on all existing protocol. My name is Ikoji Emmanuel, final year student of Chemical Engineering, University of Benin. And I've been hearing the discussion of being have been quite insightful, and am so privileged to be among great industry leaders. Right, so let me just ask my question. So first of all, we all know Nigeria is one of the largest, has the largest gas reserves in the world, right? And we can account to the fact that 60% um, is gotten from associated gas, right? While 40% is gotten from non-associated. So I don't know. So I'm trying to ask the current policy in place. Is it enough for the production from the non-associated gas? Right, that's one question. And the other question is, as regarding the pipeline that is connecting Nigeria to Algeria, right, to provide an alternative to Russian gas. So, since Russia is part of the gas exporting countries forum, and Nigeria is also part of is also a member. So, would that not be a clash of interest between both parties? Thank you.
All right, second and final question.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mine actually is not questions, but to give an insight on what government is doing in terms of import duty exemption certificate. Even though my session is for tomorrow, but I think I found it necessary to build on what my last speaker said, that people need to go and explore the opportunities that government has placed in terms of incentives, rather than probably be complaining and saying government is not doing enough. In case of import duty exemption certificate, is something that has been put in, is a framework that has been now simplified in such a way that at the comfort of your room, you can just go online. You don't have to even go to the Ministry of Finance. At the comfort of your home, wherever you are, it has been automated, and it has fully been automated. You can just go online at the site www.idec.gov.ng. Along the line of your applications, if you have any challenges, there has to be a helps lines that you can call directly in the event you have any challenges. That line can guide you appropriately on what to do. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator.
All right, thank
Over
you
to
very
you.
much. Thank you very much for that vision. Mr. Ayode Leone, I would like you to answer the question from the audience.
Okay, I would say that there's sufficient incentives. To start with, I think more recent research suggests that it's almost a 50-50 split, NAG and AG. But maybe I'm not correct, I don't know, but it seems to be more a 50-50. Very recently, there have been presidential orders, there's also been incentives. Those incentives are also specific to, in some cases, NAG too. So I think that it's the implementation will be the devil will be in the implementation. But as things stand, there is some incentives. I'm not one to just criticize government without also providing solutions and without constructive criticism. I think currently we have better coordinated policies. So I think if you go look at the most recent um, presidential executive orders and that made by the Minister of Finance recently, if you read through, you see that there are those incentives. You see things around ITCs, investment tax credits, and all of that. And also, if you look at gas generally, you see that government keeps doing so much. And I think you'd always have to bear in mind that investing in crude is quite different from gas. Your lead times, you probably need to be more patient. In my experience, advising on transactions, that's what I understand from those who do gas. It's not like you invest today and you're immediately getting your money, right? Crude is probably more mature in this part of the world because we've been at it for a while. But to specifically answer your question, yes, there are incentives, even more recently, around non-associated gas. I don't know if there was an additional question. That's how much I remember.
Thank you for that question. Thank you for the answer to that question. So, in just the last, so in one word, where do we see, with the rates the way the Nigerian gas policy is going? In one word, where do we see the future of Nigerian gas in 10 years? So I'll just take it around from Ayodele. You can just say in one word.
Yes. Well, I see that since
In one,
wait,
in one
okay,
word.
in
Sir.
one word, I see progressive
Okay.
concerning gas in Nigeria and more wealth being created because more jobs will be created. And then things will improve and will drive the economy of the nation.
All right, thank you. Can you give to the next speaker?
I see commerce. I see opportunities.
The problem with Nigeria is not about policy making, but policy implementation. Considering what we have with gas literacy, I see Nigeria advancing and leading the gas dominated energy future. And you are the ones to drive it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, lastly, for me, I believe and I see great potential and opportunity for growth. So, for people who are interested to tap into this opportunity, please, it exists. All you need to do is to do your research, and in the next 10 years, you'll be surprised how much we can do. So, it's left to you to do what you can to be part of this drive. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all the panelists from all the insights we've gotten. I think one key thing is that there is big opportunity when it comes to gas. So we need to understand the policies. We need to understand the incentives. We also need to understand where we need to play our own part and ensure that we do the very best to harness those opportunities in terms of building skills, in terms of also wealth generation as well. Thank you very much for all the industrial leaders that took part in this event. We are very grateful.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Please rise. We have souvenirs for you, just as we had for the first panel session. So once we have those souvenirs handed over to you, you will indeed be able to pose for a good photograph. Paparazzi, please be on cue. Remember, we are moving straight to the third panel session. Thank you very much, our panelists. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you for adding your voices to the conversation. And yes, it has been the most interesting and mentally stimulating conversation. Thank you for sharing from your wealth of personal and professional experience. We've spoken on gas policy, a tool for wealth creation and employment. All souvenirs handed to them, paparazzi, that is your cue. You don't want to pose with the boxes? You should pose with the boxes, actually. That's the plan. That's why we handed them to you. If the photographers take a picture without the boxes, it will show, trust me. Aha, this one will. Paparazzi, that is your cue. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you for those insights. Mr. NLCGA President wants to join me, and that is fine. All right, paparazzi, let's make it happen. So, ladies and gentlemen, that marks the end of session 2, Gas Policy, a tool for wealth creation and employment. Once again, thank you very much, gentlemen. It has been very, very interesting. Thank you for sharing from your wealth of personal and professional experience.